Right, we are back, and I'm really hoping this resin idea works. And we're doing something bigger than jewellery for once. It's incredible, isn't it? It has been such a long time since I've done a bloom. Hold on, let me just change this because it's going to be difficult to see. That's better. Now, I did have some new coaster molds, but I think that where I moved to the studio, I've left them behind somewhere. So this one is just a stained one that I kind of did the swipe and wipe on, but it shouldn't show. Right, so I created this a few days ago, and it's given me an idea. If you want a video on this, let me know. But I used interference powders. Now, Jules over at Resin Jules, I'm not affiliated with this company. She sent me a set. I can't even remember how many jars there are. They are available. I'll pop a website in the description below, but I'm not affiliated with them. But I said I'd help her out and give them a try. So these are coloured interference Aurora. Aurora? Is that the word? You know what I mean. Powders. So, like I said, they're slightly coloured. You might have these similar powders as like a nail powder. But if you have these interference powders, but they don't really show the colour as well. So these might not work, I don't know. But before I commit to a piece like this, I think I need to do a trial run, and I'm going to do a trial run in the form of UV resin because these are transparent. We're not using any white pigment paste at all. It is just the resin and the powders, and then the background kind of creates and gives that colour to the powders. Now I've just got this really big, I know it's upside down, but I'm only going to be using this piece here. It's just easier for me in this orientation. So you've seen me make UV resin blooms before. I always say that if you're struggling with a bloom, try a mini size first, especially with epoxy. You know, UV resin blooms are a little bit more difficult, but I'm gonna do this very, very quickly. I'm not gonna do it as a tutorial as such on this. I just want to see if it will work, if the theory of my color placements and what I want to achieve work on this scale. I can then make it with epoxy on a bigger scale. I might as well quickly talk you through it. Using the Let's Resin UV Clear Hard Type, I am just going to pour some into my mixing cup and mix in some of my interference powders. I call them interference powders, Aurora powders. I'm just going to say powders, guys. It's just easier, powders. So with these, you need the tiniest of amounts. Really doesn't take much. And then we're just going to mix that in thoroughly. So you don't want any clumpy bits that are going to sink. So that's mixed in. I'm just going to let that sit for a few minutes just to degas. And whilst that's doing that, I'm going to just fill this, not even halfway, maybe a third. Now the good thing if this does work is that we're at a much lower risk of blobs, because using a white pigment, gravity just takes over, and it can cause havoc with blobbing if you haven't mastered the blooms yet. So because this powder, we've used so little of it and it's so light, it's not going to sink, it's not going to blob. So what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to use a piping bag. I'm just going to begin to allow that to flow from my cup into the resin. And I'm just going to let that just flow evenly around. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, and to all my subs. So you'll see it's bloomed slightly, not as much as epoxy does, because we get epoxy to a certain temperature, but it does pull in over a little bit of time. What I'm going to do now is just draw in my design. I'm not going to swirl the middle on this one. I'm just going to draw them in. And then give that a couple of minutes under the beast. Oh, now I want to swirl the middle. Oh, I'm going to swirl it. Sorry. I know I said I wasn't going to. I'm a nightmare for swirling. There we go. There was just a little bit of negative area I didn't want. So that has had a couple of minutes. Now goes in the secondary colour. This is like a blue, a baby blue. Again, you don't need much. And I'm just going to brush that over the whole surface. And I was going to back this in black inside, but the resin has shrunk. So if I was to pour my black in there, it's going to seep down the sides and it's just going to create a bigger mess. So I'm going to have to do it a different way. And I run into another problem. Silly me, because I put a black card underneath and forgot to put my mirror underneath. The UV light hasn't penetrated through the mould, so don't do that. So I'm going to have to fix the front as well. So I've popped my mirror and I'm just going to dome the front and then do the black backing. Sorry guys, I'm only human. You can see I've just domed the front and cured that. It doesn't look like anything at the moment. I'm hoping that when we add that black, we get a really ghostly flower. So that's a small amount of black mica powder mixed in with my UV resin, and I'm just going to coat the back. I'll probably do it in 2 thin layers so that it cures. Right, now that is pretty incredible. I think what I need to do is, I'm happy that it's working, the idea is working. When I tilt it to one side, the blue kind of takes over. So what I think I need to do with the epoxy version is just apply the blue behind the pink petals, but leave the negative space to just give those petals more definition. So the black shows through a bit more, if that makes sense. And possibly add a little bit more of the pink, just to bring it out a bit more. But that is incredible for a trial run. I love it. Right. Let's move on to the bigger one. So we are going to be using the Daniel Cooper Let's Resin collab resin. I've got my thermometer at the ready because we do need that temperature to get to 33 degrees with that collab resin. Let's get mixing. So my resin has just hit, or about to hit, 33 degrees Celsius. So we're going to mix up our powder. I think I'm going to do the same again. I'm not going to bother with a piping bag. I'm just going to pour from my small mixing cup. A little bit more. So as explained in hashtag 177 was my last bloom video, I think, where we made our own pigment paste. We get better blooms the shallower the pour. It kind of pulls in and pushes out a lot better. So I only mixed up 2 ounces of resin in total. I might have a little bit left. I can use that in another project. So let's go with a bit more this time and give that a thorough mix. I said a bit more, didn't I? I think I went a little bit over the top. But hopefully as that kind of pulls over the surface, it won't be as strong and that blue will still show through, I hope. And I always mix up whatever I'm putting into the resin first, so this retains its heat. Because as explained in previous bloom videos, you can kind of miss that, a lot of the bloom opportunity, the contraction, where the resin begins to cool down on the surface, it pulls in. So I always pour my resin last. Just keep an eye on the temperature because you don't want a flash cure. Right, I can now begin to just get that correct flow. Just work my way round. I hope this works. I also hope I've got enough pink. I have to go a bit thinner. Please be enough. It's starting to run out. I just hope that if it does run out, that it gives me a decent bloom and pulls in as much as I need it to. I'm hoping I got it spot on. It's a really, really nice colour. It's not as round as it should be, but who cares? Just close that little window. I think that's it. I think we've done it. And just pull out this little bit up here. Now again, I'm just going to let that do its thing over the space of 5 or so minutes. Right, so that has been 7 minutes. 7 minutes, sorry, mask covering my mouth. It hasn't pulled in as much as I'd wanted it to. We've got some really nice blooming on the outside, but it's still doing its thing. I'm gonna just swiping my design now. And just exactly the same way that I did the smaller one. In from each side. Like so. And there it is. I'm going to leave the swirl on this one. Okay, so that first layer has fully cured and it has pulled in a lot better. Now, this isn't going to be like a normal 3D. It's not going to be as defined as a normal 3D bloom. I'm fully aware of that. I'm just hoping that I can achieve what I've got kind of pictured in my mind. Now for the blue. I think because I didn't swirl the middle, I might have a tiny window there. So I am going to fill that with the blue. But the trouble is with this now is that the epoxy is not tacky. So I am going to have a little bit of an issue. I might end up with some kind of brush marks, stroke marks where I'm applying this blue, but I am just going to persevere and carry on. And I'm not going to go around the outside negative space. I'm just doing it on the petals, and I'm going to repeat that on each petal, just bringing it out. And there you can see I've kind of tried to leave the gaps in between as well, just so the black shows through between the petals. I'm hoping anyway. I really don't know. I mean, time is going to tell. I'm going to now back this with just some black mica powder in a backing layer of resin and pop that on my heat mat. I can do that now because that first layer is cured, and speed things up. So we are fully cured. Did we get... I see, I've got this image, guys, in my head of what I want it to look like, and it is something like this piece that I showed at the beginning of the video. The blue kind of shows up, it's ghostly almost, and the pink, you can see it. It's just, I'm hoping I can kind of get that with this. So did we get any improvement on the UV version, which is nice? Don't get me wrong, it's got a really nice flash, but I want that pink to be a little bit more visible. If it hasn't worked, I may have to go in with just a small amount of white pigment, maybe in the form of a white alcohol ink instead of a pigment paste. Still a little bit flexible, but I can get away with it. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment if you haven't subbed. It is free, there's no charge for subscription, just hit that button down below. Right, please, please, please be the one. Wow. Right, so the image I had in my head is sitting right in front of me now. That is absolutely incredible. That's what I wanted. It's even got depth. Watch the way the light hits those petals and bounces back. The blue is just, I'm lost for words. I really am lost for words, because with something like this, you can't envisage it, because, is that the word? I think so. Because it's your, the powders are so fine, and it's so hard to know whether you've got the right ratios with something like this. But that is by far the best bloom I've ever done on my channel. And I know I say that with every bloom video, and it's been months and months and months since I've done a bloom. And I'm glad I didn't stir that middle, and that blue is just showing through. That's incredible. That's what we want. I don't know if this has been done before. I haven't seen it done this way. Not as just powders on their own. That's incredible. That is insane. Right, guys, I'm really, really chuffed with that, as you can probably tell from my voice. I want to make more. I want to try all of those colours from that set that Resin Jules sent me now. It's incredible. Right, I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. I will see that the bloom is really pulled in as well, because we did that shallow pour. I've seen a few other channels doing that as well since I mentioned that, because that, like I said, the heat, the cooling retracts it a lot quicker through the surface and the thinner resin. I've seen some other channels doing it. If you try this, guys, and you have got a YouTube channel, always, give a shout out to the person that you watch do it. Don't just go doing it and then and make out that you've done it yourself. I mean, support other artists. We all should. It's not fair. If you do say that somebody else has done this, I'll change my description and I'll credit that person, but I haven't seen anyone do it, so that is crazy. Right, see you for the next one. Bye for now.